Hello chess friends and welcome to Zadov's chess channel and welcome to the round 29 of the TCEC season 14 superfinal between the top engines Leela C0 and Stockfish. So Leela managed to equalize the result and yesterday Leela had two winning games and I think Leela is playing now really nice chess. Stockfish was really lost in some variations like the French defense, and today we'll see this Dutch defense played by Stockfish, and Leela finds a very nice opening line, and also Leela played in the middle game a nice positional game. And I would dare to say that Leela is maybe a slightly better player in this positional games. On the other hand, I think Stockfish has better tactical calculations. Stockfish has this really deep tactical calculations of tactical sequences, and it's really a battle between positional play and tactical play. And in this Dutch defense, you'll see that Leela has a really nice attacking style. Leela creates always against the static setups this early flank attacks, and then the game transposes sometimes into this positional games in which Leela is really good, and you'll see we have in this game such a position. So let's see now Leela's brilliancy against the Dutch defense. Here we have d4, f5, and now knight on c3, the Raphael variation. We want as white, of course, to push the pawn on e4, because if we get rid of this pawn on f5, black will continue the game with the weaknesses on the light squares around the king. So that's why d5. And now bishop on g5. This is an important move, because when you're playing against the Dutch defense, it's sometimes hard to develop your dark square bishop. So here Leela already developed the dark square bishop on a very active square. If you play knight on f6 and similar ideas, maybe we can even take the knight on f6 and create a weakened pawn structure around black's king, and then try maybe an early flank attack with h4 h5. So on the other hand, if black tries to kick away the bishop here with moves as h6, then you can play simply h4, and the problem is that black cannot trap your bishop, because if black tries g5, then you can simply play a calm move e3, and if g takes h4, then you have queen on h5 with a check. The king has to move here on d7, and then you have knight on f3. Here is the threat, of course, to play knight on e5 and then knight on c7. If you try c6, then you get knight on e5, king on c7, and here in this tactical sequence you will simply lose the rook. So if instead of c6, if we have maybe knight on f6, then you get even checkmated, because you get knight on e5, and then if the king moves here on e6, we have queen on f7, the king goes to d6, and now a very nice checkmate on b5. So you see this bishop on g5 is really a strong idea. Here Stockfish decides to go with the move g6. Now h4. Again, this early flank attack against this positional setups by Stockfish. We saw that also in this French defense games, and we said we saw it in many games that Leela is trying this early flank attack. It's not the point that Leela will somehow get an advantage here on maybe a checkmate threat around black's king. The idea here is that we want black to play maybe moves as h6 and try to weaken his king side even more, or this h4 idea. You will see in a couple of moves that it's really important, because it slows down the development of black. Now black is forced to play bishop on g7 again. If you try maybe knight on f6, then you can simply go e3, and if black tries the standard knight on e4 outpost, you can simply take the knight on e4. After f takes e4, you can simply continue to push the pawn on h5, and you see now the threat is to take here h takes g6, and we will have a very nice attack on the rook. So very nice opening line here by Leela. Here after h4, bishop on g7. You see, and now e3 and now c6. Now we have this standard setup in the Dutch defense. Of course, black is relying simply onto this d5 and f5, and of course we'll try this knight outpost on e4, but it has to be prepared because after bishop on d3, now knight on d7 comes, and it's a preparation to play finally the move knight on f6, and then try this knight outpost on e4. Knight on f3, we have knight on f6, and now knight on e2. And now comes this move knight on e4. Now it's not so clear. Of course, we cannot take with the bishop because after f takes e4, we're forced to do something with our knight. So black will gain a tempo, and this could be a problem. Again, black can develop then after that the other knight on f6, and we come now to this critical point of the middle game, and I've prepared here this soul of this position here. I really want to pay good attention of this pawn structure. Now we have this so-called stonewall pawn structure in the center played by black, this e6, d5 and f5, and here black and white have several ideas. The idea for black here is to play simply around this knight on e4, which is a very nice outpost, and the problem here is that black would love to prepare maybe moves as h6 and g5, create a pawn breakthrough. That's the main idea in the Dutch defense, to play something only around this knight on e4 and try this flank attack on the king side. And here, of course, knight on f6 can be played with the support even more here on the knight on e4. So that are the basic ideas here for black, but here is this problem for black. White can always push the pawn on c4 and try this pawn breakthrough and try to weaken this very nice pawn structure. Black cannot do this flank attack because Leela has played this important h4 move, and now when we have this static positions like in this stonewall formation, we are looking for favorable trades of pieces. So if you can imagine, in a couple of moves, maybe in 10-20 moves, these two bishops could be out of game, so they could be traded, and we can also imagine that these knights could be off the board. Meanwhile, we could maybe try a positional trade of pieces with bishop takes on e4 and somehow try to fix our knight here on e5, then create also ourselves this knight outpost on e5, and black will continue the game with this very weak bishop on c8, which is blocked out by its own pawn. So as I said, for white here, the idea is to get a pawn breakthrough here with c4 and go on to this positional trades of pieces. Black's idea is here to try to get a pawn breakthrough here with g5, but that's not so far possible because Leela played a very aggressive line with the move h4 and stopped this attack a little bit, and black will need at least 4 or 5 moves to go with this plan. But here after bishop on f4, e6 was played, and now c4. You see, Leela is playing simply now onto this pawn breakthrough, and it's very good that Leela has removed the knight here on e2. You see, this bishop on d3 was the preparation to put the knight on e2, and now Leela, Stockfish doesn't have this knight on c3 idea, which could maybe weaken the pawn structure and doubling up the pawns. And of course, because of this knight on d7, this other knight could then come on e4 and again create this outpost on the very nice square in the center. So here, after castling, we have a3. This is now preparation to play maybe the move b4, and then after that c5. Really creating this blockade here on the queen side, and then after that maybe to push a4 and b5, creating an early attack on this pawn structure, because we want to break through somehow here on this pawn c6, d5 and e6, therefore really creating this very nice and firm pawn structure, and we would love to break this pawn chain. So here knight on b6 was played, and now queen on c2, and that's what I talked about here in this position, because after c4 and knight on b6, you see we don't mind to trade off maybe this bishop for the knight, because then we can create this bishop on e5 idea, go on to this positional trades of pieces, and then creating ourselves an outpost of the knight here on e5, and simply get rid of maybe this knight or this knight, and black will continue the game with this very weak bishop on c8. So you see with this queen on c2, Leela already showed the cards here that Leela showed here that she's not scared to give up maybe this light square bishop for this knight, because you see the knight on d7 has left the defense of this e5, and here white has the possibility to create this very nice outpost on e5. c5. Now we have bishop on e5. As I said, we have now a very good positional trades of pieces, because this bishop is very good by black. Here we want to get rid of it, because after bishop takes on e5, maybe we could go here with the knight and create this outpost on e5. Now c takes d4, we have bishop takes on g7, now king takes on g7, and now e takes d4, knight on c4, bishop on c4, d takes c4, queen takes c4. And again, I hope you realize, although the position is now a little bit simplified, but now again we can create this outpost of the knight. Meanwhile, black is left with this very weak bishop on c8. It's really blocked out by its own pawns, and that are these positional ideas to play against this Dutch defense. Leela managed to get rid of this dark square bishop, and now, although black has also an outpost on e4, it can always be kicked away with moves as f3, so in long terms we could get rid of this knight on e4. But on the other hand, if we put our knight on e5, there's no way that black is gonna kick away the knight on e5, because Stockfish has already played with the f pawn, and we see we don't have anymore the pawn on d4, because we cannot play here on d6 and kick away the potential knight on e5. These are this really positional setups, and as I said, Leela really loves this positional games. I saw in the games that Stockfish won, there were always this tactical games with deep calculations of particular lines, and as I said, it's like a game between Karpov and Kasparov. Leela would be, of course, the Karpov, and Stockfish would really be the Kasparov in this match game. So now bishop on d7, and you see how hard it is for black to develop the bishop. You need still more tempos. Here we have now finally castling by Leela, and now queen on b6, attacking the b2 pawn. Now a4, and rook from f to c8. You see, queen takes on b2 is not so good, because then you get rook on b1 and you would lose this b7 pawn. Then of course we would attack the bishop on d7, which is also on the same rank as the king. So this could be a problem for Stockfish. Rook from f to c8. We have now queen on d3, now rook on c7, and if now Leela takes here with the queen on b2, we have now again rook on b1 attacking the queen. Here after queen on c2, we would have this position in which really white would have a very nice attack on the bishop here on d7. So here knight on e5 would be the continuation. After rook takes on e2, now knight takes on d7. Knight takes, and white would have a very nice activity on the 7th rank. So here rook on c7 was played, and now h5. We don't mind to give up the pawn here, because if g takes h5, that would really weaken the king side here. You see, black has these problems on the dark squares, many holes around the king. So here rook from a to c8 was played, and now queen on e3. Queen takes on b2. Now finally, because after rook from f to b1, now the queen can go here on c2, but now we have rook on e1 by Leela. Now the target is of course the e6 pawn. Although the queen took out the pawn, it's really now on a weird square. It's also attackable with rook on c1 idea. So the queen is here a little bit offside on c2. It's not so active, and now queen on b2 was played. h6. This is now important move. It creates even more weaknesses around on the dark squares around black's king. Now, in some occasions, of course, if we bring somehow the queen on f6, it could lead maybe into this checkmate threats on g7, king on g8, and now knight on g5. Now it's a really critical position, because here it's the biggest mistake by Stockfish. The next move, queen on b4, because here Stockfish had this simplification of the position. Here Stockfish could have played queen on d2, because the main idea is here to get rid of these queens of the board, because as you can see, if we get rid of the queens, then of course we don't have any more this checkmate threats on g7. And as I said, if we have if we are having maybe troubles around the king, we want to get rid of the queens. Here in the continuation, maybe queen on takes on d2 can be played, knight takes on d2, now knight on f4. Of course black cannot protect this e6, but that's not the point. After this couple of trades, here maybe rook on c4 can be played, but now knight takes on e6, rook on e8 can be played, but now after knight on g5, a couple of trades, and here after rook on d4, here we would have maybe really a simplification. Here after rook on h4, of course in the next couple of moves, black can take out this h6 pawn, and we would have an equal material, and this would be of course a drawish game. So queen on d2, I think here is the best move for Stockfish, but Stockfish played queen on b4, and now you see that after knight takes on e4, f takes e4, now knight on g3 was played by Leela, bishop on c6, knight takes on e4, bishop takes on e4, queen takes on e4, rook on e8, and now rook on e5, queen on e5. This is now an important move. It also attacks the rook here on c7, but we are also creating this checkmate threats on g7. We have also the possibility to play d5, of course, because we have a nice battery here on the e file. Rook on f7 was played. Now rook on e2. Queen on e7, now of course rook on c1 on this open file, b6, and now g3. Queen on f6, we have rook on c6, queen takes on e5, d takes e5. Now we have g5 by Stockfish, king on g2. Now we have an endgame, and of course it's very important to play with the king. Rook on f5, now we have king on h3, king on f7, king on g4, and now king on g6, and now f4. Now Leela managed to really create this very nice pawn chain here, and you see white has this better activity with this rook, so we have also the possibility in a couple moves to play the rook on the 7th rank, then we would have, of course, these 2 pawns as an object of our attack. Very, very good positional play, because these rooks by Stockfish on f5 and e8 are really passive. They're basically just protecting the king, and they're basically just protecting the pawns. Here rook on f7 was played, but if you play g takes f4 here by black, we have g takes f4, and then if you try to take this h6 pawn, then you will lose the game immediately. Because we have here rook on e6, rook takes on e6, but now king on f5. If the rook goes here on e8, we can simply push forward, and we will have this 2 pass pawn situation, and this 2 pass pawns on the 6th rank mean of course that white is completely winning. So this would be this main strategical goal here, to create this pass pawn situation on the f1 e file. So of course that's not what happened in the game. Here after f4, rook on f7 was played. Now rook on d2, and you see it's really hard for black's rooks to play somehow here, and here g takes f4 was played, and now rook on rook on d6, attacking now this very weak e6 pawn. The rook protects here, but now we have again g takes f4. If you try to again take this pawn on h6, then you get f5, and this would of course again lose this pawn on e6, and again we would create this 2 pass pawn situation on the e and f file. King on f7, now king on h5, rook on f8, and now finally f5. E takes f5, now king on g5. We have rook from f to e8, now rook on f6. Now the king has to go here on g8, but now we have a very strong move, e6, and now this pawn is really a problem here for black. Here black tried f4, but of course king takes on f4, and now a6. This is now the problem, because black's rooks are really paralyzed in this position. Let's see if Stockfish tries here maybe to play somehow with the rooks. Then you can simply go with your king forward, then maybe rook on d8 can be played. Now we can play rook on c4 again. If black tries somehow to play with the rook, we have then rook on g4. We have the check. The king has to go here on h8, and black is really in sort of a Zugzwang position, because now we have rook on f7. If the rook takes on f7, we have e takes f7, and now if the rook comes here, we have king on f6, and you see we have a perfect Zugzwang position, because we can simply play here with the king on e7 and just push forward the pawn. So you see in this end games it's really important to have this very nice activity with your rooks. You see these 2 rooks are really stuck only to the defense and are protecting the potential promotion here of this pawn on e6. So here a6 was played. Now we have simply rook takes on b6. Stockfish can here already give up the game, but here rook on a7 tried was tried by Stockfish. King on e5, rook on c7, and now king on d6. You see we have now also the perfect activity by the king. Rook on a7, and now a5. Again, rook on d8 can be played, but now king on c6, and in this position Stockfish resigned, because let's see now the possible continuation. If you try rook on c8, again checking, then you have of course king on d6 again. If you try again another check, then you have king on e5. Here the rook can come maybe on c7, but now we can simply go rook on d6. If you try rook on c5, then we would simply again trade off the rooks, and here after king on e5 we have again the possibility to play e7 and then go with our king and maybe try rook on f8, or maybe just trade off these rooks. And you see after e7 we have also the possibility to take the pawn on a6. So very nice game played by Leela. We had this early flank attack, then after that a very nice positional setup by Leela. After that we had this very nice activity in the endgame. So it's really instructive game, and I really love this setup against this Dutch defense, and I have to consider I will also, I think, play this Raphael variation against the Dutch defense. I always play this also classical systems, and these games while I'm analyzing them, they're also helping me with my preparation against some annoying openings, and Leela is having really a nice opening repertoire. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my other chess games played by computers from the series, and you can also watch my the best chess games of all time if you want to see the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history. And you can also subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and chess is the best, of course.